All right. Hi, Alicia. How are you doing?
Hey Reed, I'm doing good. How are you today?
Good, doing great. Well, for those watching online, this is another installment of our HST Student Highlights where we get to celebrate and get to know the diverse group of students that we have at HST. And today we have Alicia with us. We are currently taking Dr. Bland's preaching class together this semester, which has been a lot of fun. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
God, this is going, I guess I'm getting off topic pretty quick. Has there been anything from that preaching class that you have kind of sticks out to you so we can plug HST's preaching courses?
Yeah, well, it has been a really great class. And I think partly because I've never taken a preaching class before.
Hmm.
So it's been a new experience to get to practice preaching with a group and then kind of get feedback from that. Dr. Bland just does a great job at giving his input, but in a way that's very encouraging and uplifting. And for me, it's been one of the most personally encouraging classes I've taken at HST because of that. And so definitely encourage you to take that and be a part. And it can seem intimidating to preach and be kind of graded from that, but the way that he does it is actually really helpful. And yeah, I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I was the same way. When I was doing youth ministry, I would get to preach about once a month, but there's something about doing it and then getting feedback right away where you learn so much more than just when you preach and you get the typical like great job, that was so good,
Mm.
but none of it's kind of critical. So that's really good. So Alicia, we kind of skipped the introduction, so I'll let you just kind of say what you're doing right now, where you're living. We'd love to hear about your family and kind of what you're currently involved in.
Sure. So we are living in Searcy, Arkansas, and right now my family moved here about 2.5 years ago for a job for my husband. He's working at Harding as their chair of discipleship and church planting.
Mm.
And so his role is teaching in combination with kind of helping form teams. And it's been a really wonderful fit for our family. We get to spend a lot of time with Harding students, which kind of helps us feel like we're still involved in ministry because that's something we love to do as a family. And so that's been a great blessing. Before we lived in Searcy, we lived in New Jersey, central New Jersey, for 14 years. We did church planting, and we're on a team from Harding that planted two churches, and one in North Brunswick, New Jersey, and another in Morganville, New Jersey. And that was just a huge part of our heart. And it was a big change to move from New Jersey to Arkansas. And so it's been a transition, but it also has allowed us to have some new opportunities, and that's been a great thing. So I've been married for 18 years, and we have two daughters. Our oldest daughter, her name is Zoe. She is 14 years old. And then we have Ellie, who is 12 years old. So we're raising these two girls, and it's one of our favorite things. So I really love them.
Did y'all handle COVID well, being all home together, I guess? How's that for your family?
Yeah, it drastically slowed us down, and I think that was kind of a breath of fresh air. We were on a spring break mission trip with a group of students when we got the news that school was shutting down. And so we were just going hard, just having lots of people in our house and like really working hard. So to have like everything stop so suddenly
Mm.
felt a little bit weird, but I think for all of us, we kind of enjoyed a little bit more time together. We did some stuff in the backyard we haven't had time for. I love gardening, and so we did a big garden this spring, and also we got some backyard chickens, which we did that in New Jersey. So it's kind of like a little piece of home for us again, even though we live right by campus. So we don't live on a farm, but we're pretending like we do by having these little things. So that was definitely a highlight of COVID.
That's great. We've talked about chickens before because we've got a few, and y'all just started laying eggs, right? That's
Yes,
exciting.
it's an exciting day at the Williamson house.
So you mentioned you did church planning for a long time. So did you and Carl meet at Harding?
Yes. So Carl and I met my freshman year. He was a junior. And I wanted to tell this story because this is kind of funny. But when I left for Harding, my high school volleyball coach, who I was really close to, she said to me, Alicia, when you get to Harding, you need to steer clear of Bible majors because they are always looking for a wife. And so if one of them catches you, you're going to be caught for good quickly. And so I met Carl October of my freshman year. And by the time I came home first semester, she was like, so how's it going? It's like, well, I'm dating a Bible major. And she was like, there you go.
What happened? You're stuck. That's too funny.
Yeah. So, but he's such a blessing. Like we are very much a team. And so he is a great partner for me. And I'm so thankful to God for him. So we did meet at Harding and got married in between my sophomore and junior year, and he had just graduated. So he actually attended HST while I finished up undergrad.
Gotcha.
And worked on his MDiv during that time. So.
Mm-hmm. So was the church planting something Carl had wanted to do, or was that something you had kind of been thinking of before getting married?
Yeah, so I have always had a heart for ministry. Like even in high school, I thought I wanted to be a missionary. And so the summer after my freshman year, I spent working as an intern in Jinja, Uganda with the team there. Some really just amazing times of learning and working. I actually got to live with John and Sarah Barton and work with their team. So that was already on my heart. When I met Carl, he had started dreaming of doing church planting in the US. So it was a little different than kind of what I had envisioned in my life. But as I went to Africa, I really came home realizing I can be a missionary wherever God plants me. And so if this is something that's already in the works, like I can get on board with this. And so he and his college roommate were kind of the first to initiate the dream. And then our team kind of started forming from that. So it was what I always say is it was not an easy path. Church planting in the Northeast is tough. And I think church planting anywhere you go is challenging. But I'm so thankful for our years in ministry there. We have some of our very best friends that are still up there. And in fact, we just had a Zoom call last night because our last teammates are moving from New Jersey this weekend, which is kind of bittersweet. Yeah. But we got to see the faces of a lot of people from our first church plant there. And it's precious to see people that you've, just given a lot of your heart and life to and see them remaining faithful to God. So it's a good work. Yes,
that is wonderful to hear. I very much admire people who get into church planting because it's like you said, it's hard work. It's really hard, but I think you're right. It's very beneficial and very much needed. So, Alicia, we would love to hear your journey to HST. And we've talked a bit about this, but just kind of where you are and what made you go to HST or what kind of stood out to you about HST.
Yeah, so I have an undergraduate degree in exercise science in vocational ministry, which they call life and leadership now. But I initially worked, actually 13 years, I worked as a health and physical education teacher at a K-8 school. So I really developed just a love for teaching. And I did that part-time while we were in New Jersey and then worked with the church as well. And so when a couple years before we moved, I started dreaming about what could be next. I felt like I was I was doing fine with teaching, but I was ready for a new challenge. And so I started thinking like, what if I could use this gift of teaching and like all that I've gotten to learn here and use that for teaching the Bible and doing something that really is my greatest passion. So with that came news that we had an opportunity to move to Searcy. And so when we made that move, Carl and I decided that I wouldn't work here. I would just go full-time into school and try to work on my master's. I talked with Anessa Westbrook here at Harding and asked her, okay, so I want to be a Bible teacher. What is this? What do I need to do? And she really encouraged me to just start getting the school done. And so that's what started me on the path. And so I finished up my MA in systematic theology last spring. And then I need some additional hours to level up to apply for the doctorate. So this year I've been working towards that, but it turns out I'm able to do, I'll be able to finish the MACM at the end of the spring. So it was really a perfect thing. So I'm going to be able to finish with both at HST, and then I'll move on to either a DMin program, depending on if they'll allow me to do teaching as my ministry and how that will work, or I'll pursue a PhD in some area of either practical theology or spiritual formation.
Okay, gotcha. That is great. That sounds so cool. Man, I would love to talk more about that. But we'll keep moving on. Yeah, that's really interesting, because with the other students that I've talked about and just getting to know on campus, it's a wide range of those who want to, do this just for ministry, those who want to do PhD, do DMin. It's such a wide variety of kind of reasons why to come to HST. So that's really interesting to hear. And I will be praying that you will get to use your gifts and your experiences to bless God's kingdom. That is so
Thank
cool.
you.
Okay, so last question, and then we've got a speed round of questions that we typically get at the end as a fun thing. So during COVID, and I think you would have a really interesting perspective on this doing church planting, but in your experience of life, what has kept you spiritually healthy? What have been some practices or maybe scriptures that you have thought of?
Yeah, so one of my favorite authors is Richard Foster. I really appreciate his works, and his book, Celebration of Discipline, is something I read first when I was a sophomore in college, and it has consistently helped guide me in just going deeper with my faith, and especially in seasons in New Jersey where we were giving a lot to others and not a lot of people, really able to pour back into you. So just the practice of disciplines has been really important. Prayer time. I used to have a 40-minute drive to work. So that would just be me and God, and we would pray together the whole way. And it was just, it was what held me together as we were doing our mission work. We started the practice of doing a spiritual Sabbath the last couple years, especially as we approached like year 10, 11, our family was getting a little bit burned out. And so we were, one of the counselors we met with suggested we start practicing just a Sabbath rest time. And we've really tried to continue something like that, and just have some quietness and just time together as a family. That has really renewed my spirit and really helped me, especially in seasons of just feeling weary from the work. And so those two practices. I try to be pretty consistent with doing a Bible reading plan every year. And even though we do a lot of reading as grad students, I never want to stop reading the Bible, and just reading it to be changed by it and to really grow as a follower of Jesus. And so that is pretty much something I do every year. And so that this year I'm just doing New Testament and using that time to relate also with a friend, which has been really good. So it's a little slower read, but that's another thing that I would say has been a true blessing, is just to stay in the Word of God for more than just to study it, but just to let it change you.
That's right. That is great. That is really good advice. So your Sabbath, what does it look like for your family? Is that weekly? What day of the week are y'all trying to do that?
Yeah, so we practiced it best in New Jersey. I'll use that. Cersei is busy on Sunday. We go to church a lot in the South. Our family's still getting used to that. But we typically did it on Sunday afternoons in New Jersey, and we would just have our regular church service. We usually would go to lunch with people every Sunday, and then when we would come home, and we don't usually turn the TV on, we do this thing called family talk time, which Carl came up with, and our kids like really made fun of us for, but everybody gets 3 to 5 minutes to share about something, whatever. The first round, you talk about whatever you want to talk about. The second round, you share about something spiritual. And then third round, you can share something emotional. And that just helps intentional conversation to happen on those days. It kind of tunes us into what's going on with our kids, because they're not always open to talk every day, but that time they know they kind of have to. So it brings that out. So that's part of our day. I love to hike, and so a lot of times we'll spend some time outside, like hiking or doing something like that. So that's also usually a part of our Sabbath.
Gotcha. That is really good to hear. That's so interesting. Okay, so we will get to our speed round and end things up here. So just first thing that comes to mind, none of these are like gotcha questions. So if you had the opportunity to eat dinner with one person from the Bible besides Jesus, who would you pick? And one sentence, why?
Okay, so I think I pick Abraham, because I love the fact that he like just went out on this journey with the Lord. And so I would love to hear more about that. What it was like to see the Lord come down and burn up the fat, and just there's so many parts of his story I just think that are just really amazing. So I think I'd pick Abraham.
Okay, gotcha. That's good. We had Joseph like 3 weeks in a row, so we're changing it up. Okay, so what has been your favorite book that you've read this year, in school or out of school?
Okay, so we read David Fitch's book, Faithful Presence.
Okay.
That has been my favorite book of graduate school so far. So that book was read for congregational leadership by Carlos Gupton, and I really, really appreciated that book.
Okay, good to know. That's great. How would you describe the year 2020 in one word? What word would that be?
Unpredictable.
I like it. I like it. Two more. That's good. What is your favorite movie of all time?
Okay, I really love Notting Hill.
Okay.
There's good parts of funny and romance, and that puts it all together for me. So that's good.
Great. That's a great one. And last question. This will be interesting living in Searcy. What do you love most about the city you currently live in?
I love that we can walk to most places that we need to go, and that most things are only 5 minutes away.
That is so true. We lived in Searcy after my wife and I graduated for about a year waiting on grad school. And I still miss like being able to bike anywhere I needed to go, like work, whatever. So I feel that one for sure. Well, Alicia, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been a blessing to just get to know you more outside of class. And we encourage our viewers and those who get to watch this to just be praying for your family and y'all's ministry in Searcy and your future schooling.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. Well, you have a blessed day.
Thanks, Reed.